Yeah, not morning here, but
Yeah.
I was thinking about it when you said you had to go take a bathroom break. What is it? Duna? What's
Doona?
how do you say, what? No, what's how do you say toilet in Australian?
Oh, Dunny.
The
The
dunny,
Dunny.
the dunny,
Yeah, gotta
the
go to the
dunny.
Dunny.
That's right.
Yeah.
Gotta go to the dunny. That's right. That's what I was trying to remember. Did you get that article I sent you about the Australians?
No.
No, it's good. So there's these three
Oh, I
Australians.
think,
It's over
sorry, yep.
like the last 3 years, and one of them's kind of retired, but he built this museum in Tasmania, one of the biggest attractions in Tasmania. But he's a mathematician, and
There's
they
not a lot. There's
swindled.
not a lot in Tasmania.
I know there's got to be just the one. So they built a museum down there, and in Texas, they swindled Texas Lotto for 63 million by buying
Yeah.
99% of the numbers. So it's a mathematician, but they made a business out of going around and basically like swindling anybody's lotto system that they could find. They first did it in Australia, but now they've been kind of going through the US. So Texas is
Is,
trying to fight back, but I don't know how you like
yeah, is
they
that
didn't
really
break a law.
swindling? Yeah,
Right. They
isn't
didn't
that
break any
just,
laws.
that's
When
just
I read it, I
playing,
was like, these guys are genius. I need to figure the system out.
isn't that what AI is gonna let us all do soon? Yeah,
That's
good on them.
All right, let's get at it. Welcome to the conversation where we unpack the wild, interconnected chaos shaping our world, including the population's decline and all the reasons for it. Here, Joe Edgar and Ethan Kroc to help you walk through this conversation. We have had some fun times over the last week. There's this case that's going on with Abrego Garcia, and we talked about it slightly once upon a time. But why I find it interesting is because I think it's about to become the catalyst for a kind of new opportunity for both parties to take it to its extreme. And what I mean by that is we kind of saw this, earlier in COVID. We saw it with face masks, where it became face masks were like a polarizing thing. Like if you're not face mask, and so it became a big liberal movement on encroachment of rights of sorts. And now we kind of see this happen. So to break down what's going on with Garcia. Garcia entered the country illegally when he was 16. He's 29 now, but entered illegally when he was 16. He's from El Salvador. He crosses a border. I don't know why he ends up in Maryland, but Washington D.C. seemed like a cool place to go. I don't know why. So he goes to Baltimore and hanging out in Maryland. And in 2019, he gets picked up. And you were in Arizona. When I read this, I'm like, yeah, he's in Arizona. He's hanging out in a Home Depot parking lot.
Yeah, I've seen him. I know the guy. Yeah, I've met him for sure. For
And he's
sure.
he's wearing he's wearing a Bulls a Chicago Bulls hat and a sweater, a hoodie sweater, and on the sweater it has dollar bills with that are like rolled up, and then they're like over their eyes, right? So it's apparently the gang police saw it as meaning see no evil, hear no evil, say no evil. So this way he gets, but I'm like, if you go to any Home Depot in Texas, and I know I've been to Arizona and California, there's a whole lot of people loitering at 2:30 in the afternoon, and they're all looking for work. Like
All day,
it's
every
not
day.
exactly, it's not a shock to find out. And if you want to experiment, just drive up and say, hey, I need carpet cleaned. I need, I gotta build a house. I mean, they'll jump in and more than willing to help. Apparently, when the police pulled them over, they put together this gang sheet. And this gang sheet, the reason they suspect him is some of the players so there's four of them that they stopped and arrest, detain. I don't know. It says detain, but a lot of people are throwing around arrest. So one of them's name is Bembo. That's great. So he's one that is definitely been shown to be part of the MS-13 gang. And then there's Garcia, who an informant says he goes by the name of Chile or Chile. I guess it's a ranking in the MS-13. The informant also says that he's in the rank of Chile or whatever from New York. He lived in Maryland. He still lives in Maryland. He doesn't really have any association. New York. I'm not that familiar. And then there's also Jason who's in there. Jason actually gets let go. So they clearly, in their own statement, so there's been contradicting statements. They even say on the court docs that there are contradicting statements. And
West LA, right? West LA.
yeah,
No,
exactly.
East
Right.
East LA. He must be from East LA. Yeah.
East South LA. Yeah. Right on the beachfront.
Yeah.
So then they don't give him deportation removal. Oh, I should say when they got arrested, the police say they saw him like all rustling something in their pants. And then later they find like they had some bottles and there's marijuana in them. So I had to laugh as well because I'm like, well, I mean, if you were in Oregon, California, Colorado, I mean,
you know what? And it was just before the election that made it legal, probably in Arizona too. Like it was medicinal in Arizona, but
exactly. Yeah. Each of them, like,
Bum.
well, I when they said, show me your papers, they assumed that they meant, they're medicinal. So like, oh, yeah, I got my medicine.
I got some zigzags.
Exactly. He's like, I can light you. I get. So what's funny is even though they were found with marijuana, obviously it wasn't enough to do anything because the police didn't make any actions on the marijuana. So yeah, there was not enough to do anything. They went through and 2 judges did say, it's like, well, I have to go with the gang sheet because it says that there was an informant that says you were part of a gang. So if we break this to when it started, Trump ran on saying he was going to cut immigration. Biden was deporting more immigrants than Trump is right now. So he's trying to get a lot of press and he wants to show that he's clean in the streets. And so he's filled these planes up, paid $6 million to ship them all to El Salvador. In the process, unfortunately, they didn't include any press on the signal channel for putting this together, so we don't have any insight. But I imagine they put it out like, everybody just grab any gangster you can and get him to the airport. Do whatever you can. He wasn't even selected. Accidentally, apparently, was a clerical error, is what the White House says. It was an accident. It was a clerical error. But after claiming it's a clerical error, the White House is now doubling down on it. This is just, he's a gangster. And that's right. So if you hear anybody from the White House comment on it, they basically say he's a gangster. And then they talk about all the MS-13 crimes. They say MS-13, they rape people, which is true. They do bad stuff. Let's get out MS-13. But the whole point that is an issue here is they're not deporting people. They are imprisoning them. If this was a deportation, it would be like, okay, well, I mean, you were here illegally, so you're being deported, and then if Salvador wants to do something. But this isn't deportation. This is imprisonment. This is imprisonment without due process. Our Constitution here, in the U.S. is no one is deprived of life, liberty, or property without a fair legal procedures. And so due process gives them that. So without due process, no one found that the judge in the original hearing did offer what's called a withholding stay. So he wasn't deported because he was granted the allowance to be withheld, which means you can't deport him to El Salvador, but you could deport him anywhere else. But at least he was protected from El Salvador, and that's really where they cross the line. So then he's in the court. After he's deported, everyone finds out about it. Judge, I don't know how to pronounce her name, Judge Shaney, has
racist.
Said, yeah, she has said there is no basis for this whatsoever. Even the informant looks like he turned and it's nothing good there. So let's get him back. And then Judge Borgen, he is also thinking of holding the White House in contempt of court for not turning the plane around and bringing him back. And then recently, President Trump had the president of El Salvador in his office. This is where it reminds me of like the COVID woke time, because the El Salvadoran president, Bukele, that they talked before their public appearance. You can tell because they asked, are you going to deport him? And he's like, no, I'm not sending him back. And then the White House is like, there's nothing we can do. And then he's like, oh, there's nothing I can do. I can't send him back. I don't know your country. So they're in this pretend game where they, can't send anybody back, even though they paid him $6 million. He was happy to take. So now here he is, the father of an autistic, I think he's about 5 years old, married in Maryland. He's fathering 2 children. And this has become kind of the red herring argument, is that, oh, here's this great upstanding kid, da-da-da-da-da. And that could all be true. I mean, he sounds like a nice kid. I'm saying all the best for him there. the crux of the argument is he was not given due process. That's what's worrisome, is any of us can be picked up, sent to prison now, because even the White House is talking about imprisoning American citizens there who violate for gang crimes. So this is where it crossed the line, and where it reminds me of the early days is if they're already talking to craft a message to the people in advance. This is the same thing the Biden administration was doing with Facebook. Now, I'm not in the same world on COVID as many, but I definitely don't like crafted messages. I do see why they do it, because they're getting political, pushback on one side. What's your take on finding the similarities between them having a joint message of, oh, we can't do anything with Garcia, trying to really push a message, and the left is now trying to win, like, he's such a great guy. So you're starting to see already a hijacked movement that was about due process, and they're hijacking it in the same way that woke was originally a movement for race.
Well, wokeism is birthed in human rights, the human rights movement and such, right?
Well, it was literally the black movement. It came out of Black Lives Matter, and then it was people were chanting "Stay awake," and it was a movement for that. Which now it got hijacked.
I think it'd be more tied to the LGBT movement of late, and so that becomes extreme. A few points to talk about your original subject, the due process in El Salvador, and the similarities to COVID too, because I think it goes back before COVID. I think it goes back to the war on drugs. I think this is how America does war. America doesn't do war soft. America does war hard. We've heard shock of war. When they use bombs, we could see it. But they do the same thing psychologically when they go to war. So when they went to war on drugs, it was any association with drugs. You had people doing lifetime for smoking marijuana from the war of drugs. Yeah. So that was
California had the 3 strikes, you're out.
Yeah, and I'm sure the due process for that.
So you're not really talking about like hawks and doves of war. You're more talking about like actual policy, just like if you say the word drugs, you're out.
I'm saying so the war on drugs was one of them. And then you've got the war on COVID, or the war on, the war on health, or whatever it is, to try and, what I'm saying is there's certain, once they push it to that war space mentally, people forget the rules of humanity. People forget due process because it's war. There is no due process in war. And so with COVID, that was turned into a war. There was American citizens that didn't do anything wrong, and they were getting fines or, whatever for not wearing a mask or for opening up their shop, or there was no due process there. A lot of the times the people enforcing had no jurisdiction. They had no authority to give those fines. And you'll find a lot of the courts, people that fought, and even in this country where we were very, very Stalin-esque, everyone who went to court has got those things kicked out. Like, there was no authority for the government or the police or whoever was saying that they were going to enforce this measure of punishment for breaking a law, which wasn't even a law. It was like I don't even know.
An example, you mean like wear your face mask or else.
So yeah. And so what I'm saying is,
do not sit closer than 6 feet together. Or what is that, 3 meters in Australia?
So, the media might be, the media is always going to go political, but the media might be focusing on the migration numbers, whereas Trump's cabinet, they're at war. They're at war with illegal immigration. And so anyone by association is going to get smashed. There is no due process for them. I'm sorry. That's how it happens in war. Like, if you went to war with any other country right now, like significant country, you'd kick their embassies out. Anybody who was an email to a friend who, they'd be locked up. Like, there would be no due process. There would be no rights that are normally granted to citizens. Yeah.
Now, what would be the benefit of war? Because, essentially you're saying no matter what office is in power, it's almost like the Crusades, if I'm understanding. Like, during the Crusades, it was like, we've got to go and protect Jesus. And then it's like, they go and kill as many Muslims. And so here it's like, we must go and have a war, and that's to rally the troops, do you think? Is it to garner power?
You have a bro administration right now. And every time they win, or they see themselves winning something in any of their wars, they fist bumping each other on signal. So
I do think of them as frat boy tailgater, like couch coaches. The ones that critique the game all the time and somehow they got
Yeah,
into office. But
I'm sure there's a picture somewhere with half the cabinet with their shirts off, and one's got a T, one's got a R, one's got a U.
it's all spelled wrong.
Yeah, who's Trupham?
Go prunt, go prunt. Yeah, like shaking. But it does bring what I mean, because if they start war, which would mean like here's the line we're drawing it, it forces another group to basically be formed. And so what you're saying is like in office they start this war, and the other side is basically has to, because if they start the war, the other one has to defend. Do you think that's always the case? That because right now you're really seeing the liberals starting to come together and make movements, but the liberals did have power at one time. Do you think it starts there?
No, I don't think. Sorry, when I say that this is a war on illegal immigration, it's not a war. It's not a political war. Like it's literally Trump and his cabinet see this as this is how we're going to stop the illegal immigration problem. Is we make people so afraid to come here illegally that they'll stop doing it. It's like in Indonesia, you can get a lifetime jail sentence for chewing gum. Like, I don't know if it's somewhere in Indonesia or Thailand, one of those crazy, or Singapore. It's Singapore, sorry. Singapore has got some crazy laws. And
I have heard that. I actually went there, and there's gum all over the sidewalk, everywhere. I'm just like shocked. I'm like, the prisons here must be just packed full.
Yeah. And I don't know where they're getting all this illegal gum from either. But what I'm saying is, they see it as a deterrent, right? That's why you used to have the life sentence in most states. It's not because you want to go around or some.
Right.
I think that the war on illegal immigration is to try and prevent or try and slow down the amount of people coming in, so he doesn't have to keep shipping so many people out.
So it's more of a press release, scare. And there are ads going on here by the Secretary of Homeland, and she is running these ads where she's holding like M16s, and she's like, "I'll give you a chance. You have a month to go home." And then all these airways like, "We will not accept any illegals. Get out now." And they did start a program recently where they're going to pay you a stipend. If you'll register yourself and get out, they'll pay you some money to get out. So they are trying to like do a lot of self-deportation. I mean, that's definitely.
Have you heard of Libs of TikTok? She's on X. Okay, so I forget her real name, but she's just a podcast. Like she was a Twitter person, and she just posts clips of what liberals say, and she doesn't change it or edit it. She just posts clips of what liberals say, and they hate her because they all sound stupid. The clips that she chooses, right? It's like someone having a Trump channel and just choosing all the dumb things he says, right? But so she was one of the first. She was one of these podcasts. Channel. Yeah, she was one of these podcasters to get the Epstein file list and all that kind of stuff, right? Okay. Right. And I've seen pictures of her with these guys with bulletproof vests and machine guns doing the raids. You know what I mean? It's like it's total PR. But again, it's not even for. It might be a little bit for some of the right-wing conservative citizens, but for most part, it is really a statement saying that, we're at war with this, right? It's a show.
But that's slightly different because one of them is saying, I want to do a lot of PR and see if I could just scare people from wanting to come here. We want to change the brand of what it means to, be an immigrant in the U.S. But one of them is a war. I guess when you say war, I think of one, there's physical war, but if it's a soft internal war, then the closest one I think of like Reagan's war on drugs. I mean, is that
that's
what you mean?
That's where I'm basing that analogy. Yeah.
Gotcha. Because I mean, they did do a lot of hard power too. I mean, unfortunately they brought more drugs into the country because it was protected, so you could get the money. So asset forfeiture still rampant throughout the country. Where if you see somebody with $10,000 and they sign a form that asset forfeiture, the office that did the rest keeps 80% of the money, and then the rest goes up the chain. So there's an incentive to now keep most of this money. So it created a weird incentive. And I imagine we're now seeing a lot of these illegals are now going to go more undercover. They're going to hide where they were paying some type of a tax.
The war on drugs was a mistake, and I believe most analysts will admit that. But no one's going to admit it when you're making policy, when you're doing policy, right? So everybody, even the Republicans, are going to say this is a mistake somewhere down the line, but not right now while they're doing it. But same with COVID. But the difference is have you heard any liberals on the left say that they'd made a mistake with COVID? Not one. Like not one with, where's the due process? Where was the humanity? Where was the socialism with forcing people to think and be as scared as you. And if they didn't think and they weren't as scared as you, then they were a bad person worth kicking out or not fit for due process. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So there's a real double-sidedness here. It's not the issue. That's the politicians. That's the politicians
It's
spinning
double-sided.
it one way or the other.
But doesn't that force us to be very polarized? I mean, because now in
We
order
should be,
to
but
get it back, I have to go crazy the opposite direction.
a lot of people, especially on the right, saw the woke as hitting, that liberal community and making it to the point where now they've been so marginalized that everyone else now has to be marginalized to make extra room for them, right? And so there was no justice or there was no equality there. It was just a knee-jerk reaction, but it's going to take some time for everyone to admit that and understand that. But what's happening now is because you had the Trump
I don't know if
administration...
anyone will admit. I mean, I still see people wearing face masks and still screaming like, distance!
Sure.
6 feet distance.
It exactly co-aligns with the population that's watching TV or listening to radio or listening to a commercial form of entertainment, because that is the messaging that they're getting. But those numbers are going down. You look at all the numbers from the movie feed to the news. Everyone's watching YouTube now. Everyone's watching something else because they're turning off that messaging. And that's the woke. The woke is the messaging. Woke, and this is why we've got a problem now. You're going to have the right woke, is because the administration has come into a system that only works. People have to be woke. Woke means that we're all good for for everyone, for the community, right? We're all trying to improve, and we're all trying to, whatever the TV tells us is a good thing. Orange is the good color now. We're all going to wear orange. You know what I mean? So that causes
broke
harmony.
Is the branded message for now, or
well, so
was.
what the right woke is now, they're losing the people that wanted government accountability, right? Because because the people that said they actually
where are the Epstein files? They released the JFK files, but nobody learned anything.
They released parts. They released parts of it, and they're going to release more parts.
Not enough to satisfy you. Yeah. I see.
What I'm saying is they're not releasing.
I know there's a conspiracy there. It's John.
They're not releasing anything. There's enough there to look and see that the government's lying to you. So But anyway, what the right has to do now is they're pivoting, and that's why you see even on the podcast space, there's a massive debate going on about Douglas Murray, he's a gay conservative out of Britain, and he went on to Joe Rogan, and he got smashed by a comedian. Douglas Murray is supposed to be an expert and represent the expert class. He got smashed by a comedian, and this is becoming more and more obvious, and so there's a massive distrust in the expert class now. And the expert class is what the woke follow. The woke people follow someone who they know is smarter than them, who has all the right answers, who's like AI or the thing to AI. Until the AI can answer that question, I'm going to follow that expert.
But don't woke then have their experts? Like, isn't RFK Jr. one of the woke experts who?
No, he was woke once upon a time. He's not woke anymore because he went anti-woke because woke is living in harmonious discord with the government, right? The government only wants what's right for you, so we shouldn't be against the government at all. He went a little bit anti-government, but look at him now. He's stepped back in. He is totally woke now. Now he's signing off on the vaccines. He's not doing any of the things that he promised to get voted in. Same with all of the cabinet, and that's what I'm saying. So now they're doing a pivot. And can I finish my point, Joe? You talk for fucking 20 minutes. Yeah. So the right woke, what the right has to do now is they have to reestablish trust in the institutions and the organizations that you see on the TV and all that kind of stuff. And so they're going to. There's a lot of people that are waking up to the last 4 years and all the shit that happened under Biden. Look at the polls. There's a lot of people moving away from the Democrat Party. So the Trump administration thinks that they can capture that audience because they're the woke. And that's the woke right. And the woke right are the people that are smarter than everyone else because they listen to all the experts and they're not conspiracy theorists. And the conspiracy theorists are going to be dumped hard and fast by the Trump administration. You watch. Now I'm done. Sorry, bro. I got to finish a sentence or a thought.
I love it. I think the point as far as experts, this is kind of Fauci. This is the replay of Fauci. Right?
100%.
When
but
COVID
it's
first
branded
happened,
differently. Yeah.
So it's the same polarized
Yes.
groups have taken hold of different parts of the argument and they just use it as a red herring. But Fauci in his original, he was an expert. The reason they brought him in is because he was the leading expert on pandemics.
This is no. This is so you're woke, Joe. You are woke, and I'll tell you why. Because you haven't realized yet that this is the problem that everyone is really facing, is that we're all realizing that no one has been an expert. Everyone has just been representing their political interests or their bias or their funding or their, there is no experts at the end of the day. And the problem is the expert class knows this. And there's so many alternative ways now to solve problems and to look at problems and to look at history even. A lot of the problem that the woke agenda is having right now is like history, what do they call it when you rewrite history? To protect the way we look at history.
Winning right? a war?
Well, we know that war is written by the winners, right? Or the history is written by
history is written by the winners, right?
Sorry, history is by the winners. And so they're saying it's bad for us to go back and look at actual facts and evidence from history to actually learn what was actually going on in some of these wars, because we might not like what we see. And the gatekeepers, the experts, are saying that's so dangerous to do. We can't do that. And that's because their authority is based on Orm's.
Let's break that down a bit, because I went through COVID. I actually loved it. It was some of my best time.
Of course you did. Most people did. Most people don't want to go back to work, bro.
I know. Well, I could fly anywhere. I could go anywhere. And then you could walk into a bank with a handkerchief over your nose and a hat, and everybody was fine. I mean, never did I think I'd be able to get away with that. But that happened everywhere. You go on an airplane with a handkerchief and a hat. And from Texas, you're like, this is a dream world.
No? Not in Australia. No, I flew back in 2020 in, must have been May. So it was still kicking off, but I think it was already after the 2 week of lockdown. But yeah, I traveled through 3 airports in America. They didn't care. It was just, there was nothing happening there. As soon as I got onto the Qantas plane, you had to have with the mask on the whole way. Like I pretended to eat a meal.
That eventually happened here. Yeah.
And then as soon as we landed in Sydney, police escort to your bus. Onto a bus.
But didn't you enjoy eating with a face mask? Because you could just put the food in there and then close it, and you'd be like, I thought it was really nice because you just lean back.
I had to do 2 weeks of involuntary quarantine, and you'd think it'd be nice. You'd think it'd be nice because it's a 5-star hotel. Like it's like the best hotels because they can't make money, so the government's paying them to stay open, right? So I go into the bed, and because no one had used the room for so long, there was no hot water my first day. Oh. I could not leave the room.
Oh, this is
the only view I had.
You didn't get hot water. Bloody hell.
Bro, like, what I'm saying is I've had better stays in prison. The jail cell. What's the one overnight? Yeah, that's way better accommodation.
But let's break COVID down a little bit. Let's break it down a little bit and talk about these experts. I know the right wants Fauci to have a day in. They don't even want him to have a day in court. They would like to have him in El Salvador prison. No due process. That's really where it gets down. Everybody is like, Bondi, we want arrests. And if you remember, we first heard about these wet markets, which first of all, if you go to a Chinese wet market, it's very believable that anybody could catch any disease. And second, if you're eating any type of bat soup, I'd be like, yeah, you get COVID spread the least of your problems. Some crazy food that's being eaten. And I know there's pangolin soup, and a lot of them don't need to be eaten. But nonetheless, if we heard that happened, right? So first it was the WHO. U.S. pays, we've donated almost 10% most years of the WHO's budget. Somehow they have a proclivity towards China. So when they first came out, they leaned on China to be the leading expert in talking about how they did COVID. They hadn't named it at that point, but they were like, oh, China's doing amazing in handling it. They let China control the message, which I found weird. We had our first case here. It was in 2019-ish time period. And at that time, everybody's in panic. Nobody knew what to do. So when we pull in an expert, what kind of experts are there, right? For example, I had an apartment building I bought here in Austin. Right after I bought it, the day after it closed, I go in and the bottom tenant has told me there's a leaky shower. So I go in there, it's double units. There's a unit above it and one below. So I go in and I see like the ceiling is leaking just a little bit. That's kind of weird. So I stand up on the shower. I'm just like playing around and I poke the ceiling. The entire ceiling, tub, everything comes down. All of it, just missing me. I mean, I'm looking up at the unit above its ceiling above my head, and I have black tar sewer all over me, everywhere, all on everything. It's like so bad. And then I have to run to Home Depot. And luckily I wasn't wearing a Bulls hat, so I was safe. But I ran to Home Depot, and I remember the guy, as I was trying to get all the parts, like he was trying to talk to me. But I mean, I couldn't stand the smell of myself. And he was just like, oh, like his eyes were watering. I mean, the sewer drench was awful, right?
I'm imagining Shawshank Redemption, the end of Shawshank.
After I looked at it, I was like, this is a patch on top of a patch on top of a patch on top of a patch. And they just put the thing for sale. There are 0 experts here to do any of this plumbing, right? So the reason you get an expert is because not necessarily they know how to deal with every situation, but they're the most equipped, we hope, to try to the challenges that are faced with them. So I don't expect Fauci to know exactly how to handle COVID because no one did. So this is why I don't hold Fauci as much accountable as many, because I'm like, listen, if you're the CDC and you're in charge of a pandemic coming.
Can I help answer one of your mysteries here about why everyone hates Fauci so much? I'm living outside of America, right? And for a while, everyone here loved Fauci. Fauci was keeping Australia
The world liked it for a time.
But let me tell you about Australia specifically. Australia loved Fauci. We had the safest place in the world. Right, we were totally quarantined.
You were isolated.
Right?
Yeah.
We were tagged. We couldn't take a shit without the government knowing. Okay, so we love Fauci. He kept us so safe.
In the dunny.
Yeah,
right?
he kept us so safe, but he didn't. We had one of the highest rates of bloody COVID, spread because we followed his advice, and this is why he's the one who's copying it all, because he was the expert at the time. He didn't bother to do any actual science. And he went as far to say as trust the science and I'm right, you can't question me. And because of that, my scientists in my country didn't even bother to do their research either. No one did any research. My scientists literally in government, when they were questioned about what happened during COVID, when we had the COVID inquiry, every one of our experts deferred back to Fauci and back to America and back to the WHO. So,
yeah, but
so the whole health system, the World Health Organization, is so corrupt that there's no independent check from any doctor in 100 and how many countries are in the WHO? We've got one expert. He's not really an expert. We know that he's had some dodgy, questionable experiences in the past regarding science and how the claims that he's made regarding science. So for the media and the government to censor those clips of him saying those previous stuff and to create this idol of Fauci that's going to save everyone, and then for everyone to realize it was a lie, you can't expect people not to hate Fauci and be very upset that he went along with that lie. Because he enjoyed it. I saw him at all the greatest parties. I saw him throwing, well, he didn't throw, he kind of flopped a ball out at the baseball. But he was a celebrity,
instead of
mate.
quarantining,
He was a hero.
He was out and about.
Oh, yeah, but what I'm saying is he was out and about living the good life, being our hero as well. There was a lot of benefit that he got from saving the universe from COVID. How much money did he make off it?
I don't know about that. I actually tried to look if there's any financial
like
benefit.
all the countries are in it. This is the other problem that was with WHO, is even my country, like we are still selling pharmaceuticals to America right now, and we're doing that with money we got. Sorry, it's so corrupt. It's so corrupt.
I haven't found any evidence of Fauci making any money off of COVID. I have found nothing there's lots of claims I haven't found it. But if you remember, at the time, we had a president in office who was literally saying, hey, we could inject bleach into our veins or the disinfectant.
You're revising history. You're revising history. First of all, you're lying. You're saying what the media said. Secondly, you
are you saying he didn't say?
Joe, let's stick with the facts, mate. Let's go back over the timeline. You told me, when did COVID hit you? End of 2019? That's why they call it COVID-19. Yeah. Why do they call it COVID-19? Do you know why? Do you know why?
Of the COVID.
No, because it was 2019. That's literally where the 19 comes from.
Okay.
You can look it up.
But
So that's the timeline
sure,
we
but
got.
I don't know.
No, so 2019, that would have been Trump's last term. Oh, sorry, last year
Yes.
in office.
No,
Again,
January 2020, but yeah.
yes.
All
So
of
he's not
2019.
he's not even in office. Not even 6 months. Not even 6 months to go when we even start learning about COVID. So COVID was not his deal. Every
Yeah,
fuck
but
up with COVID
it had
is
already
Biden's
hit.
problem.
I mean,
No.
Italy had
There was
already
nothing
lost
there.
15,000 lives.
If Trump had stayed in office, there would have been no COVID. There would have been no global shutdowns. None of that would have happened. The only reason why it happened is because
Okay.
this is everyone knows this, Joe. The only reason why
I like
COVID
it.
happened.
I never
was so
understood this point of view. So
this is the
vent
world
it out.
knows this. The world knows that the 2020 election was stolen because of COVID, and COVID was then also the vehicle used to stop people talking about the election, to talk about anything. We couldn't talk about anything for 4 years. We were totally censored. We had to wear things over our face. We couldn't say goodbye to our grandparents when they were dying. To keep that secret. The big lie. The big lie was that Trump actually won, and that there was a whole bunch of election interference in 2020, including COVID, because COVID was a non-issue. It was a storm in a teacup. It was blown out of proportion in 2020 when the Biden administration came in with Fauci. Trump would have fired Fauci, mate. Trump was not going down the route. They were already having, and you listen to Fauci.
They were already having issues while he was still in office.
Fauci was such a big hero because the last 6 months that he was in Trump's administration, he was causing problems because he was going along with the deep state to try and instigate COVID and lockdowns and try and set it up so the Democrats could steal the election and keep going with it. So that everyone knows this, Joe. Everyone knows this except you, except the woke.
All right,
I'm the one out. But
help me on the learning. Help me on the learning curve, because I have heard this. Like the election is stolen, but if you look, we're all on lockdown. Texas, we only locked down for 2 months, but we were getting all kinds of mixed information, and it was even coming from the White House. And Italy had just been hit with 15,000 deaths, so it was a time where no one knew what was going on. We were all stuck to watching the John Hopkins. I don't know if you watched it, the John Hopkins chart.
Yes.
I would watch it constantly, see how many cases.
Joe, let me help explain more then. Come on, because this was instigated from the very beginning. Like, so they planned this back in like 2 years before 2019. They did a whole mock UN go through of this, right? And you're still trying. No, this is true though. This is all facts. And like, you're carrying on like the media, the message that we were presented was all what really happened. It wasn't. It was all a cover-up. How many flu deaths happened in 2020?
In 2020? Well, you mean because flu had none and COVID had all of them?
Yes. So what? It was just a different way of reporting it.
They were like, no heart attacks, all COVID.
It was just a different way of reporting it, Joe. So that's what that adds to the fear-mongering.
But there was a massive spike in deaths in 2020.
The spike of deaths... the spike of deaths happened after the vaccines. So now you're catching on.
Do you think the vaccine was out to kill people?
100%. You look at how many
Did you get the vaccine?
New version. No, I'm healthy.
I did. I got the vaccine eventually. I got COVID, but then when they wouldn't let me travel, because you could travel for 6 months, and then after that, I was like, I got to get the vaccine so I could travel.
Exactly.
But let's go back, because if everyone was stuck at home, and I remember when at that time I was running TennaCloud, and I had put something out like, hey, we're going to do a survey. And I had an uproar on social media of angry landlords because I said, hey, I might reach out to your tenants to ask them some questions. And I've never had an uproar. I mean, I had like thousands of angry landlords. And it's because everyone was staying at home. Nobody was leaving. Everyone was at home. So when you have everybody at home, they were like so hyper focused on every little thing happening because they're getting no other interaction.
So, and that's when the woke mind virus really took off, because everyone was stuck on the TV, right? You couldn't even go out and make your own content, or you could watch what was there, right? Like we were stuck.
But if you look at the election results, both parties had a massive increase.
If you look at the election results, there's about 20 million votes that people didn't even vote. So like if you look at the history of elections in America, Biden has 10 million more votes than Hillary Clinton. Get out of here. No, it's not true. It's not real. It's not real, Joe. It's not real. No, it's
Trump
not real.
also had almost 10 million more votes than Hillary Clinton.
I lived in America and I live off the TV. So I saw everyone that I spoke to when I was in America, bro, they love Trump. Even though the TV was it. If you live in a
Well,
liberal
this last
community,
election, obviously a
no,
majority of people did.
yeah, no, but they did in 2020. They've had the whole, even in 2016, that wasn't a surprise for me. I was living there. It wasn't a surprise for me. I was in Florida at the time, just moved back to Arizona, and it wasn't a surprise for me because everyone in the broader sense of the community in the world knew that Hillary was a bad person. They knew that Trump was the, what do you call it?
The protest vote.
The protest vote. Yes,
they didn't want Hillary, so they were willing to vote against Hillary to vote.
Give us Barbaros, right? So I admit that he wasn't no one thought he was going to be a real leader. They just thought Hillary. So, but after that, when he got in, he did so many good things that a lot of people actually liked him, bro. A lot of people actually liked him, and by 2020, the whole country wanted him to be their president. And that's why the CIA and your bloody deep state spooks had to go to the extreme of locking down the whole country so they could manipulate the election. How are you going to get you're saying that you got 10 million more votes because people stayed at home? Fuck off, idiot. You're saying that there's that many more people mailing in votes or because they're sitting at home? It's not even, you don't even have, in Australia, it's bloody, it's mandatory to vote, right? I get a fine if I don't vote.
I know. I think that's
And
great.
you're telling me if I had to write a letter and sign it and send it in, you're saying that there's more people doing that during COVID and they don't even have to do it already because they're American and they're lazy? They're playing their video games. There is no way more people voted in the 2020 election. Would have been less people voting. Think about it. Everyone's scared, like half of the world wearing a phone over your face. And you're thinking that you're
why would they vote
less?
less? I mean,
oh my God, because they're
they'd
scared
want
to
to
go
vote
outside.
more.
Joe, I've seen so many people on your side, on the woke side, that are driving around by themselves in their car with their mask on.
I love that I'm called woke. That's like my thing.
You are woke here. You wait, bloody hell! Like I'm going to help you.
I'm realizing I am woke now because I did watch mainstream TV. I followed Twitter. I followed everything. I traveled everywhere, and after 2 months, COVID is clearly out to get those with hypertension. So I was like, okay, I'm fairly fit, so I actually will try to get it. I'll see if I can get it. And for a while, I know this sounds bad, but I was trying to get it. I was licking the airport seats. I was like, any way I could try to get this. Yeah, so there's anything I could get. Give a good lick on the dunny. No, I didn't go that far, but I was trying to get it. And then when I finally did get it, I tried to give it to everybody in my family because we had a trip to Dublin coming. Nobody would get it. I mean, I was cooking food. I was sneezing. Nobody got it. It was the hardest thing. So it took the whole family, it took like a year for everybody to finally get COVID over time. And they all got it at different times from different reasons. But I never thought about the conspiracy being so deep that it was 2 years before COVID and a pre-planned thing. So, all right. So let's take that.
It's called Agenda 21. That was because this is how I know that they use it to steal the election. And this will add to my conspiracy theory. It's called Agenda 21 because it was supposed to happen further out. So they were supposed to do a better job of COVID, but they had to roll it out early to affect the election.
Were they in cahoots with the people in Wuhan? I mean, because FBI has come out and said it looks like it was made in a lab. Department of Energy, I don't know why Department of Energy even opined on it, but they said it looks like it was made in a lab.
It looks like it was made in funded lab, bro.
Right. Those two, the FBI and Department of Energy says it looks like a lab.
And I remember telling you that. I remember telling you that a few years ago, and you didn't believe me.
Well, I don't know if I did. I still don't know if I believe it. Now, could it have been? It could have been.
Oh, yeah.
All of this to come to COVID and try to win an election that's pretty crazy. I mean, I was in the governor's office here in Texas, so Governor Perry for about 4 years, and to pull off a conspiracy is basically impossible. Like anything that gets said in there gets leaked. It's just like crazy how many things get leaked. It is impossible to keep a secret, no matter how small the room is. They go out, and then the things that are true aren't quite understood. And so, I mean, to manage a conspiracy on that kind of level is like, I'm not quite there where I can believe this. But
you are because you're woke, right? And the woke people. The woke people will only believe what their TV tells them. So it doesn't matter if it's real or not. You still don't believe it. You even said before that it was a government-funded lab in Wuhan. You still don't believe it. And even if the TV tells you, you won't believe it. So people aren't going to, they're going to choose to believe and not believe what they want. That's what woke is. Woke is not accepting the truth. Woke is not accepting the facts and believing the expert, because the expert knows because he read it in the book, even though we just found something new which hasn't been added to the book yet. So you're all going to be, no one knows this yet, but because the expert isn't talking about it, we can't talk about it. And it's a censorship. It's easy to control the message. You could just ban everyone on Twitter who says no, and you can, everyone who goes on podcasts and says yes, we can just attack them, or we can get frivolous lawsuits against people, and we can scare anybody from dissenting against what the message is that we have.
I looked up an interesting fact. The average life expectancy for an American, it dipped because of COVID. There were so many deaths in COVID that it dipped for a couple of years, but now it's slowly coming back. It's almost to 80. It's like 79.25 for we're getting back. Yay. Australia average life expectancy is 4 years longer. Why do you think Australians live 4 years longer than Americans?
Okay, so you lived here for a couple of years. Do you remember when we would...
Does that mean that time will make me live longer? Oh,
sure. Yeah, it's probably an extra. It's like you can have a cigarette to take off that day. Yeah.
Okay.
But remember when you lived here in Adelaide is a good example. When you go to the grocery store and you come home, you don't have to rush to put the stuff in the fridge, right? Actually, no, this is a bad example. But because it's cold or whatever, right? But so maybe temperature has something to do with that, right? So maybe there's a lot of
it's summer there. It's southern hemisphere, so it's your summer right now, right?
But even the population, most of the population lives in a very modest climate, so we have very comfortable lives. And then the second thing is we don't have all the processing in our foods. There's some things here that we've made illegal in as far as processed foods. That was another thing that RFK Jr. was running on, and that's another thing that he's dragging his feet on now because he's up against so much money. Yeah.
Super processed food. I'll be honest, I don't eat processed food. I try not to eat. I live in the U.S. I can't not eat processed food, but I try not to eat processed food. I only eat whole foods, and I don't have any added sugar. I don't eat treats. I don't eat sweets.
Yeah,
and I've even gotten really into making. I've gotten into making my own kombucha, but I still wonder. Am I gonna make it to 79.25? Is that my number? I mean, imagine if we all walked around with like their age on their head.
I think we're almost going to be there, dude. I think this will be another episode, but AI, quantum computing, and there's been a couple of interesting, developments in that in the last month even. But I imagine there's going to be a day where we'll have mobiles with apps that basically you could put in there, like, if I do this, tell me how that affects me for the next 10 years of my life. So pretty much we'll be able to have apps that be able to almost predict the future. Yeah.
You'll have an AI agent that basically can maintain just your lifestyle. That's interesting. So to bring this back full circle, right? Mm-hmm. I love that we hit on some of this COVID conspiracy stuff. I mean, it was way deeper than I ever fully understood. But to finish off this point, this is really about creating polarization, creating these wars that we talk about. And these wars are a war of branding or a war of ideas. Both the left and the right will try to take anything and polarize it in order to have this war. The one facing us right now that seems to be a prevalent one, of course, is immigration. There's lots of fights on both sides, and unfortunately, Mr. Garcia has landed in the center of it, and we'll see where this lays out for him. It does not look like he's going to be making it back to his family, and it's really sad because the right just rips him apart, like gang member, he's a rapist, he's a killer. And so they associate everything to MS-13. And then the left is painting him as like, no, he's a family man. He's beautiful. He's loved this. But nobody is, again, talking about the actual issue, which is due process to a human. The core of due process is not that every United States citizen is given due process. Like as an American citizen, if I go to Russia, I guarantee there's no due process. They will lock me up and trade me for a prisoner anytime they can, right? So it is actual real estate of which the country's on to protect due process. It means, as the Constitution says, all people who are on the U.S. should be given due process and not just legal citizens.
And unless you're a grandmother who wrapped yourself in an American flag on January 6th and walked into the Senate building. So your argument just falls flat,
I
Joe.
knew we were
Like,
going to get Jan
no,
Sixers.
but it's true. Like, like you're talking about family men. How many family men, family mothers, family uncles, family grandparents were no due process, and not just due process. There was like shady process. There was like, you're talking about trying to get charges to stick. There was some very questionable charges that were actually filed and used to incarcerate some certain people. And so I'm glad that they got pardoned.
They all were given due process.
How can you have more empathy? And this is what is the problem with the woke, because the TV allows them to have more empathy for a gang affiliate than an
American citizen,
80 IQ grandma just wanting to show how much she loves America. Where's the empathy for her? None. Zero. Zip.
Was she wanting to show how much she loved America? She wrapped herself in a flag and followed a rowdy crowd busting into the Capitol. I think there's many other ways you could show your love.
I've seen the video. You're confusing that video with the videos in Oregon. Using that video with the videos in Washington.
The liberal left video.
There's only one party right now. Like, they're both cults. They're both bad. Stick away from Republican, Democrat. Run away from them. Right? Like they're the Jehovah's Witness or the Mormons. Run away. Just kidding. But there's only one side that's violent right now. There's only one side that uses that political violence as an actual discord from the podium. And they still call it out on the other side. They still say that Trump did all these things. He hasn't used anywhere near the language that some of the left are using, detailed language, being specifically violent about specific things, and boo, not a word. So your
reference, just to recap, your reference is that whether or not Donald Trump did incite violence in order to drive this January 6th. I've read it myself. I don't think he incited violence.
No.
I've gone through it. I'm like, he was definitely trying to run a rowdy crowd. He definitely was not trying.
Incite violence?
Did he? No, I don't think he incited violence. In the same vein that I don't think Trump incited violence. However,
let's use the same brush. That's fine.
In the same thing, what I find, distasteful that Trump did is the one reason what makes a democracy so different than any other type of country. It's like Benjamin Franklin said, a republic, if you can keep it. What is so important about that is that you hand over power. It is like the crux of it. Aside from the fact he felt he lost it, I mean, maybe COVID's a massive conspiracy.
I don't think power's been handed over. I think the Trump was the first person to take away from the government that's been running America for the last 30 years. Ever since Bush Sr., you've had the same continuation of government. Bush Sr., Bill Clinton, Bush Jr., Obama, they're all the same side.
They were all just part of the Republicrats. I have heard someone
that's
said,
the uniparty.
I voted for 3 Democrats in my life, George Bush, McCain, and Mitt Romney. I was like, I think the liberals' polarizing of issues are the reason we ended up getting a Donald Trump, is because it forced the polarization.
Romney was on the same team. It didn't matter who was. That was the difference between the election and Hillary and Trump. Romney is still one of those same guys. Romney is still working for that same team, that continuation of government from Bush Sr. And honestly, you can see the panic, and everything went south in the plan for the deep state when Bush Sr. died. And you can go back to the funeral and you can see images of all of these same, like Bush is sitting right next to Clinton, sitting right next to Obama. They're all opening and reading the same letters. And it's letting them know that Poppy's not around anymore to protect all of us. And we've got to go it alone from now on.
Again, democracy, just to finish this point, I realize it's not there's a whole conspiracy theory.
It was a democracy. It was a democracy, yeah. But the idea of a democracy.
But the entire democracy is to say, I lost, I have power, I'm handing it to you, and I respect you. It's like, it's yours now you do it. That handoff was the most disrespectful handoff we've ever seen. He refused to go to inauguration.
He didn't lose. I wish that there was a resurrection. I actually feel bad, and I might get censored or even put on a list from your country right now. But I don't think there is enough patriots in America. I wish that they had have overthrown the government, or at least called whatever it needed to be to make sure that the people's voice was heard, because the people's voice was not heard in 2020, not in America.
I like it. All right. You heard it here, folks. Hostile dysfunction. We have conversations and unpack the wild, interconnected chaos shaping our world, including the population's decline and all the reasons for it. And appreciate you listening. Until next time, I think we have a nice interview coming up where we're going to try to assess a couple of us in the form of psychological makeup based on our place in order of birth. So in your family, are you number one? Are you number two, number three? And apparently, psychologically, that means we're all different. And so we're going to be interviewing Dr. Hurst as he walks us through some of those variations. So stay tuned for that next week. Until then, you heard it here. Thank you all.